Well, welcome to Oasis in the Wilderness. I'm Dr. David DeRose. This is going to be an exciting faith-based journey throughout the summer of 2024. We're glad for each one of you who are joining us either in real time or by way of some of the general material that will be recorded. So some of the personal things that we'll be sharing, those will not be recorded later in the program, but some of the general material, we will be recording that. And that's what we're doing right now to bring everyone up to speed, a lot of folks who couldn't join with us in real time. So this is a program that's designed for people from any faith background. I am a Bible-believing Christian, and I do have that orientation as I go through the studies we'll be talking about. But I invite you, whatever your background is, to kind of filter that through your own perspective. If you don't relate to a biblical worldview, as we share things from that perspective, we still welcome your comments and your insights. I think these are timeless truths. Just because they're contained in the Bible doesn't make them less relevant to people from other faith backgrounds. So with that in mind, I want to invite you to pray with me as we begin tonight. Father in heaven, I want to thank you that you're a God who reached down to me as someone who doubted your existence and was confused about life as a young adult. Thank you that you stepped into my life. I believe you want to continue to guide us at this point in our lives. Thank you for each one who's joined us. Please give us your special grace as we begin this journey of healing and helping and supporting one another. We ask it in the name of our loving Creator. Amen. Well, tonight I wanted to give you a little bit of medical background. I'm a physician, and so that is kind of the filter from which I look at things that stress us and challenge us. And I wanted to give you a few things that are kind of overview in nature. I know you don't want to listen to just me speak for an hour. We're not going to do that, but I do want to give you a real thorough overview of the program. There's some things that are optional, some things that'll be interactive, some things that'll be more didactic, and just kind of give you a feel for what we're looking at. So to help us with that, I'm going to go ahead and share some slides that we've prepared for you. The program is called Oasis in the Wilderness. And I'm going to give you a schedule a little bit later in the presentation, just what you can expect on a night-to-night basis throughout the summer of 2024. As we begin tonight, I really thought it was important to acknowledge something that is real, and that is that there's an incontrovertible truth that you can't deny it. It's reality. And that reality is that every single one of us is, just to be honest with you, we're facing challenges. We're facing stresses every day. We all suffer grief and loss. Those are part of living. And from a biblical standpoint, Jesus spoke about this. He said, in the world, you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. So yes, we go through challenges, but we're not in this alone. What's interesting as I look at the medical research literature is, pretty obvious as men, we've been told things like as we go through grief, as we go through loss, as we go through severe stressors, we have to be tough. It's not supposed to bother us. I've been looking at a number of research studies that deal with this dimension. And here I thought was a salient quote. It's from the British literature, if you note the spelling. Cultural and social norms encourage male internalization of emotions. And what they're saying here is, as guys, we're not supposed to talk about our emotions. You're supposed to, keep that in. And you say, well, you didn't need a medical research study to share that with us this evening. Well, this may or may not be something that you can relate to. There's a lot of stuff out there on grief and loss. And one of the things that kind of caught my interest was something that I thought actually might be interesting because probably a lot of you are not likely dealing with this particular loss right now at this moment, just statistically. It's looking at pregnancy and neonatal loss in men. And in the research, it's a very difficult loss to process, like a lot of losses are, because we get ambiguous cues in society as to what we should do. When a woman miscarries, there's a lot of compassion to the woman, but what about to the man who's been involved in that relationship? And it's an awkward thing. The researchers say, I mean, the child hasn't been born yet. I mean, the father wasn't pregnant, but yet the father has lost, a child as well. And how does someone deal with this? And so looking at this research is really, I think, emblematic of any kind of loss for men. And the researchers talk about the difficult challenges that men have. They're supposed to be supporting those ladies in their life, their female partners, but there's not a lot of social recognition for what they're experiencing as men. And the researchers, this is a review looking at a variety of studies that look at men's reaction to loss early in childhood, miscarriages of their partner or an infant loss. And it says their interactions with others seem to play a pivotal role in how they experience grief. And then this salient point, and you could see this across the research studies, but grief is eased when friends and family are available to support men and we're understanding of their loss. And so regardless of what research you look at, that is what we want to do in this series. We want to be there to support one another. There's a solid research base for this. It isn't just something, this for weak guys, who can't handle it on their own. This is what medical science is showing us. And men's grief is often different. It's often expressed differently because of these cultural norms, and people often don't realize when men are grieving. And what these researchers say is there's need to increase the accessibility of support services for men following pregnancy, prenatal loss, neonatal loss, and to provide recognition and validation of their experience of grief. And we could talk about this in terms of any relational loss. The Bible has insights into this topic as well. And I think it's quite interesting as we look at some of these biblical examples. For example, here in the book of Romans, Paul says, "Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love, in honor giving preference to one another. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep." So I hope you're seeing in this a call to kind of come alongside each other. It's interesting, it mentions with brotherly love. It actually uses this term that speaks to us as men coming close to each other. The Bible is not just limited in the New Testament to speaking about this privilege of coming close to people in grief. There's an interesting passage in the book of Ecclesiastes. So this is Solomon writing. And he says something very interesting. He says, "Better to go to the house of mourning than go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will take it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by a sad countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth." And I thought it's an interesting passage because a lot of us somehow have been taught to think, well, no, you don't express grief. That's something we don't acknowledge as men. You put that out of the picture. And yet we have these scientific and biblical calls for us to address this, to come alongside one another. And that's really the rationale, the background for what we're doing during this program throughout the summer. So I asked this question, why are you here? And we may want to hear from you at some point. We're recording right now some introductory remarks, so we won't put you on the spot. But the program was really designed for those who were dealing with major life stressors. Originally, when we piloted this program about a month or two ago, it was designed for people with relational stressors, loss of a spouse, either through death, through divorce, separation, loss of a job, a major health loss. But then as we interacted with people, I mean, some people feel like they've been through chronic life losses. They've had chronic illness. Maybe they're disabled. And so they may not have had a loss last week or last month, but they're hurting too and feel like they have a need for support. But beyond that, I noticed that a number of people wanted to engage with a program like this who may not be going with what they would define a major life stressor, but they realize these biblical calls, these scientific calls to support other people. They want to be part of a supportive community. So what I just want to say for those of you who are here with us this opening night live, others will be a lot more likely will be viewing this recording, and that's why we're recording, and a lot of folks who couldn't be with us for the live presentation. But the point is, we invite any guy to come along for this journey. We need to support one another. You may not be dealing with any major loss right now, so if we are sharing, and there will be some times that I envision us having opportunity to share in a recorded session. There's going to be a portion of things where we'll be sharing some deeper things that will not be recorded. That's going to take place in some breakout groups. So I'll explain to you how the program is structured. Then we'll come together for some general interaction after those breakout groups. None of that where we're sharing, the really most personal things we're going through. You're going to be sharing that with a smaller circle of individuals, probably no more than 6 people in these small groups. It's designed to be anywhere from 3 to 5, but we'll be starting with about 6 in a group because we're expecting, we may have some people that don't stick with us for the duration. But I'll explain more about that as we go along. So the point is, though, just because someone is involved in this program doesn't mean they're going through some major life loss. If you see someone you recognize, if they, comment or share during the general session, don't get on the phone and say, hey, did your significant other just die? If you had a child, why were you there in this meeting? The point is, we're all in this together. As men, we're going through challenges on all kinds of different levels, all kinds of different losses, and we need to support one another. So I welcome every one of you, whatever your reason is for joining us. So with that background, I want to talk with you a little bit about that recording if you haven't caught what I'm sharing. So again, the original intent, we weren't going to record anything. What we found, though, is a lot more people have signed up and expressed interest and are able to be with us live. And we said, hey, we're going to be talking about some general content, especially the first night. We're going to be talking about how the program works. We're talking about different resources and logistics. There's no reason why we can't make that available for those who couldn't join us in real time. And we have people connecting with our content from all over the world. This is a kind of crazy time to meet for some people, for example, in Europe right now. We do have a number of European individuals who connect with other content on our Timeless Healing Insights website. And so, it's pretty early in the morning for them, and they're not jumping on, but they may want to have their own discussion groups or things. So some of the general material we're going to be recording, things that people can benefit from. And I'm going to make it clear what those sessions are. If you're not aware, on Zoom, it will show when the program is being recorded, so it's all transparent. It's not like there's any surprises. Generally, if you want to look at it, probably about the first half of the program, about the first half hour of our general sessions. Tonight, it's going to be a bit more just because this is designed as an introductory session. So a lot of this is just kind of talking you through the mechanics, how the program works. And I am going to open that up for interaction in just a little bit. We won't actually have the breakout sessions tonight, but I'm going to explain to you how they work and how you can be a part of those. Those will actually start with our next session, so a week from tonight on May 15th. And like I said, if you were on with us before we started recording, if you're uncomfortable with seeing your name show up or anything like that, I'm going to work when we actually put the recording out that if you've been listening to this portion live, no one's going to know that you were listening. We may have some time to interact that will be recorded. Again, I'll make that clear in this introductory session, but feel free to rename yourself. You can have your camera off, whatever you want to do. We'll talk about settings where in the group settings that would not be appropriate. I'll talk you through that in just a little bit. So what I want to give you now are some handouts to guide you through the program. So if you can download these in real time, great. If you can't, I'm going to actually project these. So the website you want to go to for the handouts, for the resources, and we're going to be putting things up each week on that website. It's timelesshealinginsights.org/Oasis-materials. So timelesshealinginsights.org/oasis-materials. So let me show you what you'll find there. I want to walk you through a few of the handouts just so you kind of know where we're going. One of the criticisms of support groups is often they're unstructured. And some of us who got together and, some pilot sessions, that was some feedback we got that people want, some kind of definite curriculum. And so that's what we've been working on over the last month with the help of a number of you. Some of you have been involved in that process. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to go back to sharing, first of all, the the slide that has the handouts that you can anticipate uh, utilizing or tapping into. And I'm just going to kind of walk you through, first of all, what the different resources are, and then we're going to look at some of them in detail. So first of all, you'll see this program expectations and recommendations. That's the first handout that I'm going to spend some time with you looking at. Then we have an Oasis in the Wilderness master schedule. So we're not meeting every single week over the summer, so I'll explain to you how that works, but that has the actual meeting dates and what we're covering each meeting. We have a couple of textbooks. One is a recommended book, and the other is an optional book. We're including a tracking of health metrics component to the program. This is something that I'm going to encourage you to do. I'll explain to you why. Basically, in short, when you're going through stress, you tend to, deviate from optimal health behaviors. This is what we typically find. The more stressful your situation, the less likely you are to engage in healthy self-care behaviors. And it kind of becomes a vicious cycle that undermines your ability to deal with stressors. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So we're going to encourage each of you to track at least one health metric. I'll explain what that is. We do have a Timeless Healing Insights privacy policy. That means if you're sharing anything with us, it is confidential. Actually, the only person will see anything if you send it directly to me is me. And I'll give you ways to do that as we go through the program. But there's also going to be other things that you'll be able to feed into as a group, some group portal things where there won't be any individual tagging. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Want to tell you about the breakout groups. We have a commitment and confidentiality agreement. That's for those of you that engage in the personal sharing in the breakout groups. And then after tonight's presentation, depending on what all we cover, I will put together kind of a slide set so that if you're looking at some of this stuff or you couldn't access the chat because you're watching a recording or you missed something, we're going to actually put the slides up as well. So they'll also go into that section on the Oasis-materials page of the timelesshealinginsights.org website. So with that background, I want to go ahead and we're going to share at this point a different resource. And if you're in real time accessing those resources from the webpage, you can look at that resource. But we're going to go right now to the program expectations and recommendations. So just to kind of give you an overview. And what's going to happen at this point, I do value your interaction now at this point. So if you're okay with that while it's being recorded, you can either communicate through the chat or you can actually speak right up as we're walking through things. But let me take a moment now and share with you this page that is the Oasis in the Wilderness program overview, program expectations and recommendations page. So that's showing up right now. And basically, this is the overall structure for each evening. So we're going to have a general session that's open to everyone. It's going to be recorded. Now, some of you are saying, like, what do you mean open to everyone? You'll hear that there's going to be a section that's not open to you if you don't want to be part of it, okay? Because it's all optional. The second thing is the health segment. And like I said, we have some strict privacy policies in place if you're sharing with us any individual data. What I like to do when I'm doing things that have a health component is give group feedback. So what we're doing is I'm working right now with a health app developer. I thought we'd have this all in place. In fact, one of the main guys I've been dealing with for a number of months, literally, we thought we were going to have this ready to roll out for you. And then they had some internal challenges. So I said, okay, we're not going to make any promises that we're working with an app, but if we do, it'll allow you to track behaviors on an app, health behaviors, health metrics, and for me to have that data anonymously, so it won't have your name associated with it. And we can share group metrics, like if the group is doing better with certain things, because we are going to introduce about midway in the program some actual specific um, health insights. And we'll talk with you a little bit about how that works. That's not part of the original. The first 4 to 6 weeks, we're not going to be doing that, but we'll add it a little bit later in the program. Then we have these breakout groups. And if you engage in the breakout group, the way I wrote it here, it's open to all who register for this and agree to the consent. Basically, if you've signed up for the program, we're assuming you want to be in the breakout groups. So it's kind of, we're setting it up as an opt-out. So if you don't tell me you don't want to be in a breakout group, when next week comes, I will have assigned you to a breakout group. So you'll go into a breakout group, and I'll talk with you a little bit more about that. And there is a consent. So if you're in the breakout group, we're going to assume that you agree to the consent that I'm going to share with you a little bit later. Okay. So then you see here this general session assignment, which is optional. So what we're going to be doing each night is looking at a textbook that's called the Joseph Principles, and I'll give you a little bit of insight into that book tonight. I'll be giving some remarks that are based on the introduction and the publisher's kind of summary or overview of the book. And if you'd like, you can pick up a copy of that book, and you're welcome to read in advance, because in the general session, I will give you some opportunity to interact. We'll do that tonight as well, even though it's being recorded. So again, take that in mind. It's not for the deepest, most personal sharing, but still some general things that might be applicable and might be encouraging to one another. So with that in mind, I'm going to go back to the other presentation. I want to take a little bit of time with this resource, which is the Joseph Principles. And so I'm going to stop sharing what we have projected here, and I'm going to go ahead and put up this other presentation that we were looking at. And I just want to give you a little bit of overview to this book. Some of you, if you read some of the invitations to this group, you feel like you may have had some perspective on this. But basically what we're looking at here is a book by Stephen K. Scott. I'm pretty shocked. I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with Amazon. But when I first looked, when I initially sent these invitations out a week ago, the book was selling for like $3.99. And I said, well, boy, I better let some people know about this. And I said, this must be just some kind of promotional today. And then I looked the next day, and it was like $3.75 for the hardcover book. And the next day I looked, it was $3.66. I think I looked today, it was like $3.14. Now some of you are thinking, well, better not buy it. Maybe it's going to be, $2. Maybe we'll be giving it away free in a week. This is the hardcover edition. So I did order one. I actually have the ebook, and that's what I've been using. So I said, wow, for a few dollars to have a hardcover copy of the book, I said I'll go for that. So I haven't received my copy yet. So if the cover's on backwards or something, and I can give you some further insight, I'll do that. But you can see the subtitle of the book. It's Turning Adversity and Heartache into Miraculous Living. You can see in the PowerPoint that I'll put up for you, these slides will all be available to you. You can see the actual link in Amazon. I probably can't put these all up in real time into the chat. If one of you actually is on top of this and want to put it in the chat, you can. I'm probably at the limit of my multitasking abilities right now. So it's in the PowerPoint slides that will be up on the website too, hopefully within a few days. Okay, let me just read to you a little bit from the description about the book, and just to kind of help you get a feel for it. Has life gone the way you thought it would go? Have your senses of safety, security, and confidence been replaced with fear, doubt, anxiety, and even depression and despair? By following the biblical example of Joseph and the teachings of Jesus, learn to turn your heart and trials into a springboard for a more tangible and intimate relationship with God. And having started on the journey through this book, I think so far it's delivering on that. Here's a little personal insight into the author, Stephen K. Scott. He lost one of the closest people in his life about 7, 8 years ago. Some of you know the name of Gary Smalley. That's the individual that Stephen mentioned. And then about 4 years later, he's hospitalized with COVID. He's wondering if he's going to survive. Some of you might be able to relate to that from a personal level. And it's in that context, he really felt the burden that he needed to share some of these things that were encouraging him from the life of Joseph and as further illuminated by the life of Jesus. So again, regardless of your faith background, these are just some powerful, practical principles. And I think you're going to find it very engaging and helpful as we go through this book as part of kind of the general aspect of this program in the opening segments. And here's just another clip from the description. With so many people living in a world of hurt and uncertainty, the Joseph Principles gives you what you need to heal your hearts and successfully navigate through current trials and future adversities. By following examples from Joseph's life and the corresponding teachings of Jesus, begin confronting your deepest hurts and find freedom using your past trauma as a springboard to a closer relationship with God. So at this point, you've been hearing me speak a fair amount. I'm kind of interested in hearing from you before we talk about one of the other resources. So do any of you relate to what we're talking about, either for the theme of the group or for this book, The Joseph Principles? Maybe you've engaged with the book. Anyone with any feedback about where we're talking about heading over the course of the summer? Now, first of all, I want to commend you because you're confirming what most of us thought about recording sessions. And that is, it's going to make you less likely to feel comfortable sharing. That's why we're going to be offline, where we're doing a lot of our sharing. But if you do look at we're talking about this book, The Joseph Principles, at the beginning of each session. And if you feel comfortable, reading something, maybe sharing an insight or bouncing something off of me that I share, we're going to be looking at chapter 1 next week. I just want to let you know in these opening sessions, they will be recorded because of the, kind of broad interest. Carmelo, do you have something you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say, I'm looking forward to these sessions, um, and actually, my wife was the one that kind of told me, you know, that this session is going to happen, and I'm actually looking forward to. I read the descriptions, and I'm looking to learn and also pass this information along to the men at our church. I'm the men's ministry leader at our church, and I did advertise it, but I'm really looking forward to hearing things and learning as well.
Tremendous. Hey, thanks for sharing, Carmelo. And let me just kind of underscore that. We're recording this for several reasons, and one is we do know there's people that want to use some of the general content in other groups. So, for let's say a men's ministry, like you mentioned, Carmelo, this may not be the best time for people. It's kind of early for people on the West Coast, 5:30 p.m. It's kind of late for some people on the East Coast. So if you're in Mountain Time or Central Time, maybe this is a sweet spot, or maybe there's a conflict. There's a number of people who've told me, they have prayer meetings or other things that are happening on Wednesday night. So actually, that's one of the reasons for recording the general sessions, and then the breakout sessions you can do on your own, or you can just look at how we're using it. You can feel free to use any of the resources we put up. We're not copywriting things. Yeah, you'll see copyright designations and some of the stuff that comes out of our office, but you're all free to utilize those things as participants in this group. Okay, so feel free to use any of those resources. Any other comments about what I've shared about the Joseph principles? Do you kind of see where we're going with that? Let me do this for you. I'm going to actually see if I can project for you. Maybe that's a little too ambitious. Um, I'm actually going to just go off my hard drive. I was going to see if I can pull down some of the other handouts, but since they're on my hard drive, I'm going to just pull them off of there. So what I want to share with you next is I'm going to share with you the program overview. So it's kind of a master schedule for the program. So that's what I'm going to access right now. And if you go to that handout section on the website, you're going to find this as it's going to say something like the master schedule. The actual name for the PDF file is the uh, Oasis in the Wilderness Master Schedule. Okay, so I'm going to just show you that really quickly because that'll give you just another overview of where we're headed. And I'm going to share some other content with you in just a minute. So let me go ahead and project this for you. Okay. So what we have here, so this is the master schedule, and the way things play out, we're going to meet for like 3 or 4 weeks, then have a week off, uh, meet for 3 or 4 weeks, have a week off. And because we're recording things, if you've got, you saw some of the advertising, we didn't want anyone not to join us because they've got plans for the summer. A lot of people do. And that's why we're recording, some of the general information. We're recording the majority of this introductory session as well. And you'll see here, today's May 8th. There was nothing that I was expecting any of you to read in advance. You can see that second column. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. The only recommended reading is from a book called Streams in the Desert. I'll talk with you about that in a minute. We do want to encourage you to engage with that. It's a daily devotional book that I'll tell you more about. And then the book that I've been mentioning, the third column, the Joseph Principles. Tonight we're giving the introduction, drawing some from the introduction of the book. But next week, and you can see over the course of the remaining or the additional 13 sessions, so it's a 14-session program, the book, The Joseph Principles, has 13 chapters. So tonight we're touching on the introduction to that book. And then each week that we meet, we're going to look at a different chapter of the Joseph Principles at the beginning of the session. You don't need to buy the book. You don't have to have the book. But if you want to get the book and you want to read it in advance of our meeting, you could pick up a copy of the book or download a copy. And what we'll be talking about next week is called Finding Hidden Treasures Where You Least Expect Them. It's a powerful chapter, starts with amazing illustration of a story. I think you'll really be engaged with that chapter. Then we're going to talk about the physical health component in a minute, but I just wanted you to see how the schedule's laid out. And if you go down to say June 5th, you see there's no meeting that week. I still am going to encourage you to be engaging with the book Streams in the Desert. Tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. We will have group assignments next week, but we won't finalize the groups until June 5th. So we realize that not every group just gels, not everyone feels a fit if we just assign you into groups. And you have the freedom to reach out to me. The easiest way to reach out to me is actually through the timelesshealinginsights.org website. Go to the Contact Us and reach out that way. But I'll also give you my personal email address in a minute, and we'll project that up for you shortly. Okay, but so you can reach out to me directly, or you can go through the portal, if you say, hey, I want to support this person, or there's a couple of us from the same men's group, we want to, or you might say, you know what, I think it'd be better if the two of us from the same men's group are not in the same discussion group. We could pick up some other insights. And so if there's someone you don't want to be with, if there's someone you do want to be with who you've invited to come and you'd like to go through this experience together, that's fine. Just let us know that. So when we assign the groups, so sometime between now, ideally before the weekend, so that when we assign groups, we can, put you in a group. And if you find you're in a group that isn't gelling for you, it just doesn't seem like a fit, the groups are a little bit fluid for the first few weeks. We hope we have you all in groups that you'll want to stick with, but we know sometimes, some people may say, hey, this is too much for me, or I didn't know what I was getting into. And there may need to be some juggling of those groups. But once we get through those 3 weeks, the remaining 10, 12 weeks of the program, because it's spread out over a little bit more than just the actual in-person sessions, you'll be in specific groups with specific people that you'll be supporting each other throughout the journey. Okay. And again, these are small groups, probably averaging about 4 people. So, designed to be small so you can have time to share and get to know one another. Another thing I'll draw your attention to, if you look down to June 12th, you'll see under the physical health component, I talked about tracking behaviors. We're going to introduce something called the Father's Day 30-day health challenge. So starting on Father's Day, which is a day that all of you will remember, maybe for good or for bad reasons, depending on your background. I know it may sound like a strange comment to some of you, but I deal with a lot of people. And so this 30-day health challenge is something that we're going to launch, and I'll tell you about that. The health things are optional, the physical health things. So if you don't want to do anything with that, we don't want you to drop out of the program because of it. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the rationale for that. And I think it adds to the program, as does the individual sharing the small groups. Some of you may feel that's too much right now for you, and we respect that. So, just let me know if you don't want to be in one of those groups, or if I assign you to one, you don't have to go to it. If you don't show up, they're going to know that wasn't a fit for you. Any questions about the general overview? If I can, scroll through this for you if you just want to kind of see, where things go. So you can see, meeting again 3 weeks in June. The 4th of July week, we're not planning to meet. You can see then meeting the following 4 weeks in July. So you can see they're not meeting the first week of August, and then August 14th through 28th. So August 28th is scheduled to be the last formal meeting. We do have then, you can see, September 4th, so after Labor Day weekend on Wednesday. We do have an optional reunion and graduation. And then you can see I jotted something down for September 11th. I've not made a commitment to relaunch this program in the fall, but already, some dialogue about that. If people couldn't do it in the summer, summer's a bad time for people, there is a possibility we could relaunch it in September and go through the program again at that point. Or maybe, one of you will say, hey, I want to do this in September. If you start on September 11th, you can go through a 13-week program and finish before the end of the year, take off for Thanksgiving. So we kind of walk through that in advance just to see if the dates worked. So that kind of gives you an overview of things. Any questions about that overview as far as scheduling? Okay, I do see some of you have engaged on the chat, and I will mention that. So one of you shared, I'm excited about this. Relationships are one of the biggest things in life. Thank you. And really, it's a thanks to every one of you, because, if it's just me and one person, it's not going to be much in the way of relationships. So really, each one of you is an important part of this journey. We do have other people who may be jumping on and joining us. I know a lot of folks couldn't make it for the introductory session and have expressed interest. So again, we're recording with all of those things in mind. So let me transition back to the PowerPoint slides. I want to tell you about this other resource, Streams in the Desert. So let me go ahead and see if I can get that sharing for you right now. And I'll explain to you how we're working with that resource. Okay. So this is showing you Streams in the Desert. This is, I don't know, just kind of curious. Any of you heard of this devotional? It's been around for nearly 100 years. It was originally published in 1926, if I'm remembering correctly. This particular illustration is from a revised edition, updated by or edited by James Reman. And again, it's an inexpensive purchase. You can get the hardcover, or I have it as an ebook. $10 on Amazon, 512 pages. There's the link there. It's ranked 29th in Christian devotionals. You can see there this particular edition. So this has updated language. If you see this next image, this is kind of a, I guess you'd call it like a legacy edition. You can see they've kept the kind of old cover art, and here's how they bill it: not modernized, kept in its authentic form and power. And that's true. The publisher is something called Chump Change. Maybe that meant something different in 1920s than it does now, but I thought that was interesting. It's about twice as expensive on Amazon, but you do get the original Streams in the Desert. And you can see it doesn't rank quite as high. The newer edition is selling better. You say, well, what's the difference? So I wanted to do something with you. I also have the newer edition on audiobook. And what I thought would be interesting is to give you a feel of just the difference in reading of the two books, because some of you may like the old King James scriptures and the more older English language. It just is more elevating for you. You want to hear the original language. The history of the book is really interesting. I didn't put that in your booklet, but it was compiled. It's largely, this is a men's group. The compiler is a woman. She was going through a lot of life stresses when she compiled this. The most heavily drawn from author, this is not based on my counting lines in the book, but from someone else who reviewed the book, is Charles Spurgeon, the famous British preacher. And so a lot of the readings are from, are men writing. It's not a woman's devotional, per se. But I actually said, well, what am I asking you guys to do? What I'd like to challenge you to do is to get access to the book and read at least one devotional per week. Because I've got the audiobook, these files are timed. They average about 3 minutes long if you read them out loud. So these are short devotionals. And I'm just asking you to read one of them. If you were to go through all the devotionals for the next week, so we're asking you to correspond with the week that we're in. So May 9th to May 16th is the week that starts tomorrow and goes through our next session. I'd like to encourage all of you to engage with one of the readings at least. If you engage with all of them and you had an audiobook version like I have, I was out running the other day listening to May 9th through May 6th, or actually May 1st through May 8th, in preparation for this, and came out to less than 20 minutes. That's next week that I measured the times. So it's not a big ask. I guess the big ask is actually getting you to access the book. I think it's really worthwhile. I was pointed to this book by a friend of mine who's a pastor and went through a divorce and a lot of life challenges. He said this book was something that really helped sustain him during those trials, and he kind of put this book on my radar screen. I'd heard of it, but wasn't really familiar with it. So here's what I wanted to do for you. Chapter 131 is the reading for May 7th, and I was going to play for you about a minute of this reading, and I'm going to show you. So the reading that you'll hear is from the contemporary version. It's this one that James Riemann has edited, and so you'll hear the reading from that version, but you will be seeing. I'm going to project for you the original edition. And sometimes it'll be easier to follow, and other times you're going to have to be doing some mental gymnastics because there is a fair amount of rewriting that's been done. And that may be a good thing for you, it may not be, but I'm just trying to help you to get a feel for the two major editions that are out there. You got the original edition, and then this revised Zondervan edition. Zondervan is the publisher, with James Riemann being the editor. So with that in mind, here's how the May 7th reading starts, and I'm going to try to play that for you right now. So let's see how that works.
May 7th. Jesus told his disciples a parable to show them that they should always pray and not give up. Luke 18, verse 1. The failure to persevere is the most common problem in prayer and intercession. We begin to pray for something, raising our petitions for a day, a week, or even a month. But then, if we have not received a definite answer, we quickly give up and stop praying for it altogether. This is a mistake with deadly consequences and is simply a trap where we begin many things but never see them completed. It leads to ruin in every area of life. People who get into the habit of starting without ever finishing form the habit of failure. And those who begin praying about something without ever praying it through a successful conclusion form the same habit in prayer.
Okay, so hopefully you could appreciate the difference in reading there. And hopefully that may help you in making a decision as far as what edition to use. Now, if you're not wanting to engage in the discussion groups, in the breakout sessions, you do not need to get that book. That book is especially designed for your breakout sessions. And the reason why I chose May 7th, as I listened to that devotional and then read it through, I have the ebook as well as the audio book. I disagreed with it. Okay. So it's okay for you to disagree with something. What I like the point that was being made in the reading, and that is a lot of us give up in prayer, and we don't pray persistently. But what bothered me about the reading is it left the impression that if you pray diligently enough, God's going to do whatever you ask. And it's just your lack of faith. And this is clearly not true in relationships. So, when we're going through a fractured relationship, no matter how much you want the relationship to be healed, there's at least one other person involved. And if they don't want the relationship healed, it doesn't matter how. I mean, I'm not saying your prayers don't make a difference. I'm not saying you shouldn't persevere in prayer. But at the end of the day, that person can decide that they don't want anything to do with that relationship, that they're walking away, that they're done with you, that they're done with the family, that they're done with the workplace, wherever they're done with the church. So that kind of bothered me a little bit. But I think the devotionals, some of them are, I resonate with completely. Others of you, like I said, you don't have to come from a Christian orientation. Some of these things may bother you. But these are things that I think provide a very nice springboard for talking about some of the things that we're going through in life. So that's what we're recommending for the breakout sessions, that this be one of the springboards that you use. Come prepared to read something next week if you want to be in the breakout session from May 9th through 16th of the devotional Streams in the Desert, and be prepared to share just something that resonated with you, something you didn't like, a scripture that you related to. We're not looking, at a major speech, something that spoke to you in your current situation. So that's the purpose for that book. Any question about that resource and how we're using it? Okay. Well, let me share with you a few other things then in the time that we have remaining. So I want to go back to the different resources that you have and just share with you the other few elements of the program. So what I'm going to share with you at this time is we have a section here on the details about the breakout groups, as well as the what we call a health log and the tracking your health. So this handout that I'm going to show you right now is from the Tracking Your Health handout. And let me just get that projected for you here. Okay. So if you're on the website and downloading things, it's listed as Tracking Your Health. And that is right here. So let me share that with you. So I alluded to this earlier, why I've included a health component. And all that I'm doing is challenging you to you don't have to do this yet. We're going to introduce this next week officially. You could start before then, that's fine. But I'm wanting you to think about something you'd like to track. It could be, a behavior. It could be something that you measure. And if you look down, I've got some examples for you in this handout. So some reasons why I'm recommending that you track. I think it can actually help you as far as this journey that we're on together, but choosing what to track. So here's what I'm asking. Just ask the question, if some health things happen this summer, what would I be happy with? And so there's kind of a fill in the blank. As far as my health, I'd be happy if I lost some weight, improved my blood pressure, was more consistent with my sleep. So if you can envision something with your physical health that you'd be happy about at the end of the summer, I would suggest you track something that relates to that. You say, well, what would that look like? Well, you see those bullet points at the bottom of this handout. If you're wanting to be more consistent with your sleep, maybe you're going to track your hours of sleep per night. Maybe if you're trying to drink more water, you're going to track how many glasses of water you drink per day. Maybe you have a step counter. You're going to track your steps because you want to be better with your activity. Maybe you have something that's tracking the minutes of activity that you do. So you can see different things you could track. Like I said, I'm working with a health app developer to have a group designated for us. Whether we have that to roll out next week or not, I do have something for those of you who would prefer not to track on an app. And that is, there's just a simple one-page handout that we have. It says My Health Log, and I'll just show you that really quickly. That is something where you basically write down a single health goal, something that you're going to track. It could be a goal, it could be something else that you're just measuring. And let me show you what that looks like. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And that's this document here. So it says My Health Log, and you choose some trackable metric. Maybe you're going to check your blood pressure each morning. And then there's a space each day of the program. We're only asking you to track from May 19 through through the week of July 14. So we'll talk more about that, how that works, okay, in our meeting next week. So again, not something you have to start on right away. The other things that I wanted to show you before we wind up are we do have some expectations of you if you are in one of the breakout groups. So like I said, we will assign you to a breakout group if you've registered for the program. And there are details about the breakout groups. That's a separate handout. And it pretty much we've touched on that already. It gives you just recommending that you read something from the Streams in the Desert devotional and come prepared to share that with the group. We'll recommend you get to know each other first, have some introductions. That'll really take about half of the program each week, starting around 9 o'clock Eastern. So we get started at 8:30. We'll talk about, some things from the book, the Joseph Principles, and then we'll move into the breakout groups. We do have in there a consent form. You don't have to sign it, but we're expecting that if you're in the breakout group, you're agreeing to what's in that document. It's called a group commitment and confidentiality agreement. And let me just project that for you. I just want to highlight a few things there for you. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically just saying that you're going to keep everything in confidence that's shared in the group. There's going to be no recording. You're not going to be telling anyone about it. Oh, listen to this story that I met. You wouldn't believe who was in my group. It's confidential who's in the group as well as what you're hearing. Okay. Now, sure, if someone says, here's my testimony, I've written it, it's, on this website. I mean, sure, you can share things of that nature. I know this is in small print there. I'll blow it up for you. I guess that's probably the best thing to do if my system will cooperate with me. Okay. So basically, it's just reminding you of several things there. And you can see there under number 5, we will want you to have your camera on, your microphone muted unless you're speaking, etc. You don't have to do that in the general group session that's being recorded. But when you're in the breakout sessions, this is a personal encounter with other guys that you're supporting one another. If you can't attend, this is number 2. Actually, I guess I've got it spelled out more in the other handout. It's number 7 here. It says you're expected to you're committed to stay connected with your group on a weekly basis. The weekly meeting fulfills this expectation. But if you can't be on the weekly meeting, we're asking you to reach out to everyone in your group, connect with them, send them a text, continue to read the devotional, and just make a connection. Say, hey, miss being with you guys. The reading for May 15th really spoke to me. Encourage you to read it if you haven't. So it doesn't have to be anything lengthy, but you're committing to pray for each other, to support one another through this journey. Don't bail out because of that. Like I said, the groups aren't finalized till the beginning of June. So at least get a feel for what we're doing there. If you feel it's not for you at that point, that's okay. But I'd encourage you, unless you feel strongly opposed to it, join us for that. So that's what I wanted to walk you through as far as this, introductory hour. And I thought we may have a little bit of time for some interaction. I wasn't expecting much of it, but we didn't do any of that in any kind of deep personal way. But that's designed to happen in the breakout groups. Do you have any questions about the structure of the program and how things work? Okay, so next week, plan that we'll be assigning you to breakout groups. If you have any preferences, feel free to let me know. You can, let me know either. I told you I'd give you my email address. Let me put that in the chat right now. So it's simply Dr. David DeRose. So Dr. David DeRose at gmail.com. And you can reach out to me directly using my email address, or you can reach out through the portal. If you lose my address or forget it, just go to timelesshealinginsights.org and hit connect, and then you can communicate with us. Anything else? Any other questions before we wind up tonight? Okay, so we do plan to go for an hour each night. Again, we spent a lot of time with logistics and mechanics, but I think it's important for you all to understand how we're, going through the program. We'll be rolling out some things as we go along, but I think you've got the big picture. So I want to commend each one of you for, taking time out to join us. I'm looking forward to being part of the group. I'm looking forward to us supporting one another. By all means, you're welcome to invite others to join or invite them to go to the materials website. Yes. Is actually an opportunity to get the recording as well. So we'll have the recording as well as the PowerPoint and those handouts there. So with all of that in mind, let me wind up with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, I want to thank you for bringing each one of us together to begin this journey throughout the summer. We know that we are guys that need to support one another. We see that biblical call. As a physician, I see that call in the medical research. Father, there's a lot of things that can compete for our attention. Please help us as a group to stick with one another and to learn together, to grow together, and to be able to share that with others and to enrich our own lives and the lives of those around us. Thank you that we can trust you to go with us on this journey, for we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, God bless each one of you. Have a good night. Looking forward to seeing you next week.